While everyone else is chasing shiny objects and making headlines with blockbuster moves, the smartest organizations in professional sports are doing something completely different. They're playing chess while everyone else plays checkers. The Vancouver Canucks just provided a masterclass in this approach, and if you blink, you'll miss why these two seemingly insignificant signings might be the most important moves they've made all year. Riley Patterson and Gabriel Kurot aren't names that'll trend on social media or generate breathless trade deadline coverage. But these 3-year entry-level contracts represent something far more revolutionary than any splashy free agent acquisition. They represent an organization that's finally learned the difference between building for next season and building for the next decade. This isn't your typical feel-good prospect story, either. This is about Vancouver demonstrating they've evolved beyond the desperate win-now mentality that has plagued so many franchises, including their own recent history. What we're witnessing is organizational maturity in its purest form, the recognition that sustainable excellence requires patience, vision, and the courage to invest in tomorrow when everyone else is obsessing over today. Riley Patterson's journey from Burlington, Ontario, to a Canucks contract reads like a textbook case study in value identification. This isn't some raw project or developmental long shot. This is a proven producer who just torched the Ontario Hockey League for 25 goals and 59 points with the Niagara Ice Dogs after being acquired from Barrie midseason. But here's where Patterson's story transcends typical prospect hype. This production represents genuine consistency, not a hot streak. Over his 2 seasons with Barrie, he surpassed the 25-goal threshold both times, accumulating a staggering 121 points in 132 games. That's not luck, coincidence, or favorable matchups. That's systematic excellence at the junior level. The most telling statistic? His 29 goals in 2023-24 led all OHL rookies. Think about the implications of that achievement for a moment. In a league absolutely loaded with highly touted prospects and future NHL stars, Patterson outproduced everyone in his age group. That's not just talent. That's the kind of competitive fire and natural scoring instinct that organizations spend years trying to develop artificially in other players. Vancouver selected Patterson 125th overall in the 2024 NHL Draft, securing him in the 4th round while other teams focused on bigger names and higher profiles. It's precisely this type of value drafting that separates successful organizations from perpetual rebuilders. Identifying genuine talent before it becomes obvious to everyone else and forces you to pay premium prices. What makes Patterson particularly fascinating as a prospect is his demonstrated ability to maintain production across different systems and environments. His seamless transition from Barrie to Niagara, maintaining elite-level scoring throughout, suggests the kind of hockey intelligence and adaptability that translates beautifully to professional hockey's increased complexity. Gabriel Kurot's path to this contract embodies everything beautiful about perseverance and late-blooming development in hockey. Selected in the 7th round of the 2022 OHL Draft, essentially an afterthought in most organizations' planning, Chiarot just delivered career-high numbers with 21 goals and 35 points for the Brampton Steelheads. This is a player who was overlooked by every OHL team multiple times before finally finding his footing, yet he's now developed into exactly the type of prospect that NHL organizations covet. His 114 games with the Steelheads represent steady, methodical improvement rather than flashy highlight reel moments that capture attention but don't translate to consistent production. The Hamilton native selection as the 175th overall pick in the 2023 NHL Draft tells a compelling story of organizational patience and scouting excellence. While other teams chase obvious talent in the early rounds, the Canucks identified a player whose best hockey was clearly still ahead of him and committed to his development with this entry-level contract. What makes Chiarot's breakthrough particularly compelling is how it reflects modern hockey's increased emphasis on character and work ethic over pure athletic ability. Players who overcome early career setbacks and develop through persistence often possess the mental toughness that becomes invaluable during the pressure-packed moments of professional careers. His career-high numbers last season weren't just statistical improvements. They represented a player finally synthesizing all the pieces of his game at exactly the right developmental moment. That kind of breakthrough performance at the junior level often predicts continued growth and adaptation at higher levels of competition. These signings illuminate something crucial about Vancouver's current organizational philosophy. Under their existing management structure, rather than chasing expensive veterans or trading away future assets for immediate help, they're investing in the patient, unglamorous work of player development that creates sustainable success over multiple seasons. Entry-level contracts for players like Patterson and Chiarot represent minimal financial risk with enormous upside potential. If either player develops into a meaningful NHL contributor, the Canucks will have secured their services at below-market rates for multiple seasons. If they don't reach their potential, the financial impact remains negligible while the learning experience benefits organizational development systems. This approach demonstrates the kind of organizational maturity that was often missing during Vancouver's previous attempts at contention. Instead of mortgaging the future for present-day improvements that might not materialize, they're building a foundation capable of supporting sustained excellence across multiple competitive cycles. The 3-year terms for both contracts also demonstrate confidence in their internal development systems. The Canucks aren't just signing these players and hoping for the best. They're committing to a comprehensive, multi-year development process that provides both prospects with the time and resources necessary to reach their full potential. The hockey world often dismisses junior league statistics as irrelevant to professional success, but that represents a fundamental misunderstanding of how player development actually functions. Consistent production at the junior level indicates specific skills and mental approaches that translate directly to higher levels of competition, albeit in more refined forms. Patterson's goal-scoring consistency across multiple seasons and team changes suggests an innate understanding of how to identify scoring opportunities and convert them efficiently. Those instincts don't evaporate when players transition to professional hockey. They often become more refined and effective as players gain experience against superior competition. Chirot's late-career breakthrough demonstrates the kind of work ethic and adaptability that organizations value even more than raw talent. Players who continue improving throughout their junior careers often carry that improvement mindset into their professional development, creating upward trajectories that extend well into their NHL careers. The combination of production and character that both players have demonstrated makes them exactly the type of prospects that intelligent organizations prioritize during their building phases. They're not flashy enough to generate headlines or social media buzz, but they possess the fundamental qualities that create organizational depth and internal competition. These signings integrate perfectly into Vancouver's broader organizational strategy of building through the draft and development rather than expensive free agency or desperate trade scenarios. By systematically accumulating prospects like Patterson and Chiarot, they're creating the internal competition and organizational depth that becomes absolutely invaluable during extended playoff runs. The beauty of this developmental approach lies in how it compounds over time. Two individual prospects might not seem particularly significant in isolation, but when combined with other intelligent drafting and development decisions, they create the organizational depth that separates legitimate contenders from teams that flame out during the first sign of adversity. Vancouver's willingness to commit 3-year deals to both players also sends important messages to other prospects throughout their system about developmental priorities and organizational patience. When organizations demonstrate genuine commitment to player growth rather than immediate results, it becomes significantly easier to attract and retain other young talent who recognize clear pathways to professional opportunities. For Vancouver supporters who have endured years of frustration with short-sighted organizational decisions that prioritized headlines over sustainability, these signings represent something more valuable than immediate roster improvements. They represent competent long-term planning finally taking root within the organization's decision-making processes. Neither Patterson nor Chiarot will likely make immediate impacts at the NHL level, but that completely misses the point of their acquisitions. They represent the kind of systematic approach to talent acquisition that creates sustained success rather than brief periods of competitiveness followed by lengthy, painful rebuilding cycles. The excitement shouldn't focus on what these players will contribute next season, but rather on what they represent for the organization's long-term trajectory. Smart drafting, patient development, and strategic contract management constitute the fundamental building blocks of championship-caliber teams across all professional sports. These signings also create positive competitive pressure throughout Vancouver's entire development system. When organizations systematically add talented prospects, it forces existing players to elevate their performance or risk being surpassed by newcomers who are hungrier and more motivated to prove themselves. What Vancouver's front office deserves tremendous credit for is recognizing genuine value where other organizations saw question marks or overlooked potential entirely. While flashier organizations chase obvious talent and pay premium prices, the Canucks are quietly constructing something sustainable through superior evaluation and patient development processes. These might not be the signings that dominate social media discussions or generate immediate excitement among casual fans, but they represent exactly the type of organizational thinking that creates lasting success. Sometimes the most important moves are the ones nobody notices until they're producing tangible results on the ice where it actually matters. The financial efficiency of these moves also preserves crucial salary cap flexibility for other organizational priorities as their competitive window begins opening. By developing talent internally rather than acquiring it through expensive trades or free agency bidding wars, the Canucks maintain the financial flexibility necessary to add complementary pieces when their championship window fully opens. This represents organizational evolution in real time, Vancouver learning from past mistakes and implementing the kind of systematic approach that successful franchises use to maintain competitiveness across multiple seasons. The question isn't whether these specific players will become stars, but whether this approach will consistently produce the depth and talent pipeline necessary for sustained excellence. What's your take on Vancouver's patient approach to building through development rather than flashy acquisitions? Do you think Patterson and Chiarot have the potential to become meaningful contributors, or would you prefer seeing more immediate roster upgrades? Jump into the comments and share your thoughts on whether this developmental strategy will actually translate into the kind of success Canucks fans have been waiting for.